for me, building pipeline is pretty easy. But execution, this is what matters.
Welcome back to the podcast. Today I'm joined by Oksana, the Vice President of North America at VentureSoft, a company working with midsize and enterprise clients across security, manufacturing, retail, and financial services. At RevGenAI, we build AI automated outbound and thought leadership podcast systems for B2B founders, and this show is where we're spotlighting growth-minded leaders who are driving innovation in their industries. Today, we'll explore how Oksana and her team are creating impact, scaling growth, and shaping the future of enterprise technology and solutions. Oksana, it's great to have you.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice meeting you, Mayor, and thank you for inviting me to this podcast. That's a really great idea. Happy to share all the insights.
Of course. So, can you just share a little bit about, first of all, your journey, how you got started with VentureSoft, and really what VentureSoft focuses on, just to start things off.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So my experience, I got used to build revenue engines in the company. I would say where things start from scratch, new markets and new solutions, unclear positioning. I have my experience of working both in consulting and services companies as well as in product, in security, AI, automation, cloud space. I joined VentureSoft in September last year. And of course, it's all about AI. This is what I was attracted to because at VentureSoft, we work in the intersection between data, AI, security. So I would say, help companies to move from AI experimentation to really AI production, which means starts with data, then it incorporates AI into customers' workflows, depending on the industry, depending on the department. And the third, and I would say very big and important step, it's trust, security, and safety of AI. So that's why I joined VentureSoft, because I like an idea. I like the solution-based selling, as well as I like to work with customers who are willing to be on the forefront of new technologies, and they are testing, trying, doing everything. And like, it's, great to be the part of this journey.
Yeah. You said something interesting about like, I think right now we're in a point in this shift in the industry where everybody right now is saying we do AI, and it's really hard to continue to stand out. And so I'm curious about like, because I saw that you have, very high-end enterprise clients like Tesla, Nike. How are you guys differentiating your pitch for clients like that versus a dozen other firms that are saying the same thing about like, we do AI services? What are you really focusing on that's like helping you cut through the noise?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I don't say that we do AI services. So as I mentioned, there are three components when we're talking about AI. First of all, data readiness. This is where companies start, and most of them fail because without the great data, AI will not work. It will break. The second thing, this is what we cover, of course, a big part of our AI and data practice. Then understanding of the customer workflows, the understanding of customer processes. So we can say, hey, by incorporating AI at this stage or at this part of your workflow, the ROI for you will be, for example, plus 30%, or productivity will be much higher. So we can give them an idea, I would say, to give them this seed to think that, okay, it really will work. And then again, very important part is about safety and security. And that's why we work with customers also on adversarial data sets to stress test their AI systems and models. So customers are confident that, okay, it works, we will not be hacked, or AI understands correctly the intent. So I would say positioning and messaging are very important. However, in the age of AI, even in 2026, one of the most important things when you work with a customer is to build trust. So this is, of course, relationship. They are not coming like immediately, right? It takes some time, but customer will understand how much honest you are, how genuine your intent to help him, not only to sell. I want to help. So there is a difference, and that's why I always will tell that messaging matters a lot, and you want to work with the customer not just to get the revenue. You don't consider the customer as a line in your CRM.
Yeah, I really like that approach. First and foremost, qualification, making sure that who you're speaking to is actually ready when it comes to their data and actually can be ready for AI utilization, and then focusing also on like how it's actually going to work. But most importantly, the part that like too many companies I'm sure ignore, or is in fact the reason that it stops them from jumping and elevating their company with AI is just the security risk, right? And so really
Yes.
focusing on an adversary approach. But I love what you shared about how you approach relationships, because this is also a thing that we really like to think about. It's just like, how do we build trust, right? And how do we continue to focus on like what builds a human relationship, what builds trust, what builds that genuine connection that at the end of the day is what leads to business, and not the opposite of just like focusing on how to optimize or like extract the most revenue, and that ultimately like that type of focus doesn't really work. And I'm curious, just like how do you approach conversations with enterprise prospects, and like what do you show them that really builds that trust, versus
Yeah.
just kind of coming across as generic and not really like understanding or not really building that genuine approach.
Yeah, of course, like we all have outbound channels. We all work with it for years. It doesn't disappear. Uh, I I'm part of different communities here, professional communities in the Bay Area. I'm part of AI community, cybersecurity, sales, revenue. Uh, so I'm in touch with different thought leaders, professional leaders, and founders, as well as I try to attend as many professional events as possible because it helps me, first of all, to meet with people in person, to hear, I don't know, their thoughts, what they have in their mind right now. And when you look into like eyes to eyes, it's a bit different, right? When you're on the call, of course. So I would say in-person meetings is always very good. Uh, Plus, when we talk about people who are in different states, right? It doesn't mean that they are willing to meet with you immediately. But through even through your messages, you can show that I'm not here to sell. I'm here to learn and share what I know as well, because it doesn't mean that they know everything or I know everything. So we always exchange. So for me, it's more exchange experience and ideas. Then to understand, okay, this is where their mindset is going to, how I can help them. Maybe they don't see this problem yet. And then I would say it's moving into the direction of the discussion between people who understand each other rather than just transactional. I understand, of course, where in sales, every company needs to have revenue. However, I believe that when you are not transactional completely, when you are genuine, so this is when people will feel it, and this is when they will be more open. This is my approach.
I love that approach, and I think that people can feel that. If anything, it's like that's the art of building relationships. It's the art of sales, and the more that you can actually care about the person genuinely, the more people actually feel that. And I follow the same approach. And I like how you just also not you're always in this process of sharing what you know, and then also learning from others, right, with other communities and everything there as well. But the industry and everything, like every industry is kind of shifting, right,
Yep.
rapidly with what we're seeing with AI. And so I'm really curious, like how you're seeing outbound and demand gen specifically kind of shifting, and like what's different now versus say 2 to 3 years ago, and in terms of how you're actually building pipeline?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, building pipeline is pretty easy. But execution, this is what matters. So pipeline, as we know, paper can handle everything. So it's one thing. However, when we're talking about different channels, outbound specifically, it's more about automation for many years for me. For more than 10 years, I use automation in my processes as much as possible. So I try different tools, including startups, because you never know. Some startups will be much better than these big tools that are in the market for years. They are faster, they are more agile, they might have better data. Of course, we all tried Apollo, Zoom Info, we'll work with them, HubSpot, different CRMs. But for me, the most important thing is connection between CRM and all the system to automate the process for email, for LinkedIn. So everything should be automated as much as possible. However, even when we're working with our customers for AI use cases, we always have human in the loop. So the same approach for me is in sales. We can automate everything. We can create these sequences, but there should be human in the loop. We always need to check, track what's happening. If the person is interested, I don't want to use AI if the person is interested. Even if he says or she says no thanks, I still want to add some of my messages by saying, hey, sure, let's stay in touch, but like, let me know in case of something, what's in your mind, just to be a bit more human. So I would say it works. Of course, AI, content creation. We cannot live without AI in this direction. Automation, again, CRM, systems, marketing, sales automation, LinkedIn automation. A lot for me matters the data about people, data about leads. It should be clean. I don't want to see people like data about someone who left the company 6 months ago. For me, it doesn't work. That's why I don't trust all these tools. That's why I try more and more. So I would say, in as in our work with customers, data first. When we're talking about all the tools, sales or marketing, data, content, automation. And content is very important, and automation is very important. Content, as I would say, is building trust for you as a company brand, personal brand, and automation helps you to scale it. I don't believe that it can exist without each other.
100%. I think it's the same philosophy that we have. It's really not replacing ourselves completely with AI, because at the end we'll lose the human touch. There's the things that humans can feel. Even sometimes, like what the way you write, no matter how much you have AI reference your exact style, sometimes it'll just come across better if you just write it handwritten, and that still comes across and it still feels human. And then when it comes to just how accurate the systems are, how helpful they actually are, and that comes with thinking it through and actually making the system work for you instead of require more from you. And we really like to just think about what are the parts that AI can really handle that don't hurt the end result, but just allow more scale, allow us to do what we're doing best, but just at a much higher volume than we would be able to do otherwise. And yeah, I really like your approach. I'm curious about like how VentureSoft has been like, and how you've been seeing the shift inside the industries that you're selling to, because what I noticed is that you guys focus mostly on healthcare, manufacturing, financial services. Like these industries are notoriously slow when it comes to new technology adoption, or just how fast they move. And so I'm curious, like, what are you seeing about how these companies are thinking about AI adoption? Like, what's the biggest internal blocker that you guys run into when it comes to creating a deal for these types of companies and like where it usually stalls or slows down?
Yeah, of course, we work with regulated industries as well as we work with retail, tech, and other industries as well. When we're talking about this, I would say heavy lifting, right, industries where sales cycles are so long. First of all, they want to work, they want to have the, I would say, the latest technologies, but they are getting stuck because of their legacy systems, unstructured data, a lot of problems with their data. So this is the first entry point where the conversation usually starts. Sales cycles, it's not about the lack of use cases or understanding the problem. It's more from the organizational perspective. It's more the procurement, how the processes work inside of their company. So I would say the process is slowing down not because of the lack of understanding or they're not willing to use whatever they want. It's because their processes are slow them by itself. That's why while you work with these industries, you have to be involved with of working with other industries in parallel who are not so well so difficult, to work with. That's why I see e-commerce, retail, real estate. They move faster from that side, and you can speed up the process when you understand the pain point and you are coming with the use case or with the use case that can help to solve it ASAP, and you are saying, hey, this is what will work for you, and then the person can push it a bit inside for their like other teams by saying, hey guys, can we go faster because this is what we need. Or if their customers need, for example, they work with healthcare, right? So we know that they're using all these old outdated systems. So customers always complain, hey, what is it when we will get something more modern. And in this case, they are willing, the healthcare company itself, for example, VP of engineering or CIO, they will be willing to push processes faster to start working or start implementing these use cases for their customers because there is a demand.
Yeah, I think that that's a really good frame because the better that you can actually know your customer, the more your communication cuts through and really helps them understand and get clarity on what you do, how you help, and just the focus on the biggest pain as well as the biggest pain that hurts their bottom line of their own customers and understanding that again like that's what compounds, and I think that's what actually separates your ability to create that pipeline in the first place, but also speed up the process. I have a question just because the more that AI becomes prevalent, the more that everybody's getting fatigued from being pitched around AI, and like a lot of founders or operators are just getting constantly pitched around AI solutions right now. And so I'm really curious like how you would advise someone who's listening to a pitch to be able to cut through the noise and figure out which AI investments are actually worth taking and will actually grow their pipeline. Like what if you were sitting in the seat of the other person, like what filter would you advise them to use to be able to understand if this is actually worth their time and is going to lead to an ROI for them and is actually worth pursuing?
Yeah, it's understanding of my processes. It's it's clarity, as you mentioned before. Understanding of my processes, understanding of what doesn't work, and offering human in the loop. This is when I'm talking to CIOs, CISOs, they all want and they all try to use AI, but they don't trust it. So we cannot say we will like build something for you, AI will solve 100%. You immediately will get no. Because once you say we will build it for you, it will work for you, but only when human will control it. Only when some of your guys will have access and will see the whole process. So the whole workflow, your workflow will not be broken in case AI does something, because you have visibility, you have access. I would say this is still three components: data, processes, understanding of processes, and security. What is next? Okay, I have AI. What if AI will come up with something and I don't know, will break the system, right? So this is what it's very important for those people. And I see that without those three components, and security, I mean like human in the loop, it's part of that. Without all these three components, people will not be convinced how it works or if it ever will work.
Again, I think that it's a really smart understanding of just like what it actually takes to not convince, but genuinely approach the problem with the right frame, the right understanding of what needs to be communicated, and how to set up a system that actually works for the company, as opposed to what we've seen with the early AI adoption, where a lot of it just didn't lead to any returns. And now I think the industry is pivoting back towards focusing on what are the actual core parts of the process, or at least the companies that are winning right now in this
Yeah.
AI boom are focused on exactly this approach. And so, thank you for the clarity on how you're thinking about it, what you've been seeing work, and then how you actually have been building your go to market and how you approach relationships. This has all been extremely insightful. For any listeners who want to reach out to you or get in contact with VentureSoft, where's the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, of course, my email, LinkedIn, I'm always open to any type of the connections. And just to remember for everyone that positioning and understanding what you're selling, to whom you're selling, it's very important. Because right now there are so many things. So you have to understand what you do and for whom.
Perfect. Amazing. Thank you so much, Oksana.